God doesn't speak to me that often. People think that that's weird to hear.
So true.
It's just true.
It is
God doesn't
so
speak
true.
that often. When I was, sharing Psalm 51, that was almost a year of wrestling through Psalm 51, and I said 3 things God told me in a year.
Wow.
So it wasn't like I was waking up daily. More than not, I was waking up like every normal human being. Where are you, God? What are you doing? Why am I here? All those types of things. When you take all of our stories and you take Brian's story, while they all have their different circumstance, they all have the same exact foundational moment. This overwhelming turmoil inside. And so I tell people, and anyone that is wondering or wrestling, and maybe God is speaking to someone about full-time ministry, here's how I know you're called to ministry. Go do whatever else you want to do. Whatever else you want to do. And that's not ungodly for me to say. The fire will never stop burning. When you know God is calling you to something other than, nothing else fills that void.
What is going on, Post Sunday podcasters? I hope you guys are doing well. This is Pastor Johnny with you guys here, episode 4. We are with you in our year-long series, The Psalms. We're excited. We're excited to be with you guys here today. We hope that you've enjoyed this podcast. The last 3 episodes have been just amazing. They have been a little different, very conversational. If you're joining us for the first time, thank you. Thank you for letting us be a part of your journey. We hope that this podcast can be a resource for you in all that we do, and just an extension of your studies, an extension of your relationship with God and how you're walking through that. We hope that you enjoy what we're bringing here, season 4. So I'm excited. And just to bring it to you, like we do every podcast, there's some discussion guides that are going to be attached to the podcast every episode. So make sure to check that out. We got a link in all of our social media sites, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You can find those there. Hit the link tree. You'll be able to download our discussion guide based on today's episode and the last 3 that we've done. And so we're thankful to have you guys joining us here today. I am not alone, as you know. I not only have my compadre, our lead pastor, Pastor Tim Grandstaff, but we're also blessed with another round of our executive pastor being with us, Pastor Chad Harper. Man, it's a blessing, us 3 together. Let's do this.
It's the trifecta.
Yes, it is.
You get all 3 of us today on one podcast for all those that are watching. And first of all, I've been gone for a little bit. Chad joined me out in Germany. So we had a great time there. Met some people that listened to the podcast all the way out in Germany.
That's awesome.
And got this shirt representing their brand new youth group out there.
Wow,
They just rebranded, renamed. So shout out to all of our friends out in Germany, our church partner there. But today's going to be fun because we're celebrating 16 years of Genesis Church. But we're in year 4 of the podcast. And we got a lot of stories and things to talk about today with Psalm 103.
Let's go. We got Pastor Chad Harper. He's our executive pastor at Genesis Church. What's going on, man?
Just doing it with you.
Let's go. Let's go. Round 2.
Round 2.
Early in January. I mean,
this
is awesome, dude.
Right.
Something's happening good, man. I love it. I love it. It's always good having you here. We had a great response to, I believe, episode 2 that you were with us, and that was a lot of fun. And so, yeah, man, we're going to be in Psalms 103. If you're following along with us, like I said earlier, we're in the Psalms. And the Psalms is, we're not going in chronological order, obviously. There's 150 Psalms, but we will be diving deep into a good portion of them. And today is going to be Psalms 103. So, Pastor Tim, I'm going to kick it off to you. We celebrated a monumental moment. If you're new with us too, a lot of what we talk about is connected to our Genesis Church Orlando services, and so we kind of connect those two together. So if you want a little more context in what we'll be talking about, go to genesischurchorlando.com/media. You'll be able to see everything that went on. But yesterday we were able to celebrate 16 years, man.
Yeah, Sweet 16. We joked around. We now can drive.
Yes,
we're there. You know, we're on our own, as you would say. For quite some time, we probably wrestled with, like, are we still a church plant? And then, you know, you realize we're not really a church plant any longer. God has definitely rooted and established us, which is just incredible and amazing.
Yeah, man.
I think we think and approach it differently because we're still portable church. And so we're doing a lot on our fourth location that is still not our own location. And so you kind of have that playing in one side of your head. And then at the same time, you're learning and understanding we're growing.
Yeah.
God has established us. God is doing some great and mighty things in us. And we are turning the corner from where other people in other churches were helping us become who we are. Yeah. We are now getting to return that to other churches and other people and help them become who they're supposed to be. So that's the great part of where God has us. And yet at the same time, it's been an incredible journey of highs and lows. It has been a moment of celebration because every year is another year that God has blessed us and shown favor. And yet at the same time, statistically, we shouldn't be here. And that is not to our fame nor our glory. That is all to God's glory, to make much of him, as we've learned and we'll talk about today. But there's a lot of things that happen in starting a church that can go the wrong way or can be flipped upside down. And before you know it, you're asking the question, can we keep doing this? And we've had those moments along the way. And every single time God was faithful, showed himself, did some miraculous things. And here we are to the testament of that today. So there's a lot happening and there's a lot to talk about with what David writes that I believe really, attaches itself to where we are today.
Yeah. Any thoughts on Sweet 16, Pastor Chad?
Yeah, 16 years has been, it's been crazy. I've been a part of it for the last 7. So, but really, I guess I've been a part of it for all 16.
Yeah, you have.
Some form or fashion. So, but it's been interesting just watching it from afar and then watching it from the front row, And so the one thing that I would say about 16 years is this. Tim is the same person. Different hairstyles, different styles of clothing.
Yeah, you've been through some seasons, bro.
He's been through some seasons. We saw yesterday with some photos. But the same person that I've known my whole life.
That's awesome.
Is the same person that sits beside me today. And so I think that's a testament to, one, his character, but 2, how he decided to lead the church. He's been, the mission of Genesis from the moment it started has not changed in 16 years. Wow. The verbiage hasn't changed. The tagline hasn't changed. The name hasn't changed. You know what I mean? It's just, and it's been that consistency. And I think now what we're celebrating is being faithful and what faithfulness looks like. And when you're faithful to something for as long as he's been faithful to it, and we've, come along this journey, for me 7 years ago, for you, 5-6 years ago, we're the benefactor. We're reaping the benefit of his faithfulness.
So true, bro.
In year 1 through 5.
So true.
And so,
you said being a part of it from the beginning. Is it true? It kind of started at your house, like
it didn't start at my
for
house.
Services, kind of like
it didn't start at my house, but we housed Tim and Tandy. And and the 2 dogs.
Let's
at my
go,
house.
man.
So hold on, I'll correct him here. So that way everybody, it has a backdrop to this because today is going to be a day really showing you what Psalm says. Do not forget the benefits of God. And we'll get into that in a few moments in Psalm 103. But we're speaking out of our own personal story, which hopefully gives you a little insight into this podcast, but also to who we are and to what God can do in and through you. But it did start in his house because before we even moved in, there were moments where we were taking trips down from Atlanta and we were bringing people on like curiosity trips. Would you be curious to move from Atlanta, Georgia down to Orlando, Florida? And so we would have all these people in his house having dinner.
That's crazy.
On that trip, even though we were all staying in hotels or whatever. And then even when I lived there at his house, the core group of people that were starting to formulate would come over, and from time to time we would have meetings. So although we didn't officially launch the church in his house, the very beginnings of it happened. And the crazy part of it all is this thing, Genesis could have never existed completely because no one really knows this part of the story. But there were two different moments where I had other doors kind of open in front of me. One was from Chad and them. When I called him and I told him, I called him and I said, what's the zip code to the movie theater out in Waterford? That's all I knew was the big movie theater at Town Center.
That we had gone to.
That we had gone to and watched a movie in,
vacation,
that I'd seen the development and growth in that area. And he, why? Well, God's calling me to start a church in Orlando, Florida. So I don't remember if it's that phone call or he called me back and he's like, hey, would you want to talk about coming on just staff with us then? So immediately, like, there was this like other opportunity, like, we're moving to Orlando. We could just join another church plant and be on staff with them. And then what people don't know about, our guest yesterday, Pastor Brian Bloy from Westridge Church, and we'll get into that a little bit more, but he came down on a trip. I showed him the area and he said, meet me tomorrow morning for breakfast. And so we got out of our hotel, we convened, we got together, and he said, hey, I don't know if this even sparks your interest, but what if you became Westridge South? And everything we do in Atlanta, you do here. But here's what he said, because I've known him long enough, which I think is awesome. He said, first of all, then you stay on salary, then you keep your benefits.
Wow,
so that's
that's sexy.
That's tempting, right? Like, wait, I don't have to raise support. I don't have to, wonder what God's doing. But I love Brian for this reason. He looked right at me and he said, but Tim, if you're a blank sheet of paper, man, and God has etched a vision on your heart, don't even think about this. And when I took that to my wife, we fasted and prayed through a whole weekend. She came back to me that final morning and she said, we didn't say yes to this because it would be easy.
Wow.
We said yes to this to be obedient to God. And that's probably not going to be easy. And so we rejected having like our money taken care of, all that stuff, or coming right into a job. It's just weird how other doors started opening, but God kept kind of putting in front of us, nope, this is what I've called you to. And this is what I'm asking you to be obedient to.
I remember you telling me that story at First Orlando at that conference that I came over to see you because you were in town, and we were sitting on the back on like a grassy knoll eating a box lunch. And, it's like, are you really going to do this? And I remember you saying, Brian asked me to do this, but I'm a blank sheet of paper guy. I still use that as why I do what I do, because I could be a blank sheet of paper guy, but I'm more of a, hey, scribble on something, hand it to me, and let me make it better. And that's why I think we work so well together, is because Tim is a blank sheet of paper guy. He wants to draw on it. But then, now I can take that, what he's scribbled at, and try to put structure to it so he can go back to get another blank sheet of paper and draw something different.
Yeah.
So I remember that. I really do. I still use that today.
Yeah. You're never fully satisfied until you're doing the will of God. I remember you telling me that in my ordination. And that is facts, because I was at the height of my career, financially. And still not feeling satisfied. Yeah. A lot of reasons to think otherwise, but man, there's something unsettling about it, until you are in the will of God and nothing else matters. And so I'm glad, man. I'm glad you stepped into faith, because those are fruits, man. What you've seen the last 16 years, all of that is fruit of an obedient life, someone that has surrendered and said, I'm willing and able. And I think that was having Brian, Pastor Brian there yesterday. That's what rang for me. I'm available, Lord. I may not be the most skilled. I may not be the most intelligent. I may not be any of those skill sets or whatnot. I am available and ready for whatever you desire to do. And that seems to be the heartbeat of who we are in Genesis. We're just available. We're ready. Whatever we got to do, we do.
Yeah, we had Brian in yesterday because our roots go deep and long.
Yeah.
You know, Chad's actually longer than mine. Brian worked for his dad and his pops when he was in college. But, you know, to have him from 7th grade on in my life, you know, so there was about 4 years of my life in college where he wasn't there, but he was still in and out because he had just left as our youth pastor. And then we were still in college going down, taking trips to the beginning of his church plant. So he was still around. So you look back and you're like, man, this guy's spiritually been in my life for a long time. But, you know, what we were trying to portray yesterday in 16 years is that this is a long-lasting legacy of faith that has been discipled into us. And, you know, we had our student night last night, which was incredible. It was the largest student night we've ever had at Genesis in 16 years.
Crazy.
And yet I was telling some of the leaders, I was like, listen, this is just the cusp of what can take place. I said, if anything, hear the story from yesterday. Chad and I were in 7th grade, 6th grade, and this guy on stage with us, Pastor Brian, was already trying to teach us about the kingdom of God. And we didn't understand that concept right away. We didn't grasp what that meant, you know, in the moment. And he knew that. And he knew that you can't just teach it, you have to model it. And he would take us as many places as he could. I mean, he was the guy that's just like, come on, you're coming with me. It was very much like Jesus and disciples. Come follow me, and we're going to go do this together. You're going to watch me, you're going to do it with me, and then you're going to do it by yourself when I'm gone. I mean, that was his life modeled to us. And we, as young students, were being poured into. And so it makes me think when I see a room last night full of high school, middle school students, if the leadership, if people in the church invest in students the way we were invested in, there are people sitting out there right now, there are students in that space that one day are going to be doing what the three of us do. That are one day going to be doing what Brian does. But it takes someone willing to disciple into somebody and say, come with me. I'm going to show you the benefits of God. I'm going to show you the benefits of a relationship with Jesus. I don't want you to forget them. I don't want you to forget. We sat around the other night and we can tell stories upon stories for hours upon hours. Good stories, bad stories, hilarious stories, because we have so many life experiences because he wanted us to see the benefits of Jesus in my life. And that's really the foundation for how we got here, was through all of that.
Wow.
Yeah, I think yesterday was, it's very easy to be just to be blunt, to be arrogant, to get up there and see a packed house, you know, and to see people on mission and think, wow, look at us. And I think what yesterday does is gratitude for me always keeps me from becoming arrogant. When you remember where we came from, and we're thankful for those roots, and we're thankful for those people investing, and we're thankful for, you know, people like, you know, Pastor Brian that have invested in us literally our whole life. And it's like yesterday it could have been about arrogance. Look at us. But I think yesterday really was about a thank you. Thank you to a man that, you know, really, I wouldn't be who I am without him. I mean, I got emotional yesterday, every service, because it's so real.
Wow. Like
what, I mean, I barely scratched the surface of the times that this guy has been in my life, and the critical times. But every single time he was there, but he was focusing to what God can do through you, what God can, you know, want you to be able to do. And it's keeping that kingdom minded, even when the circumstances of my life were crumbling around me. You know, it was just stay focused. You can get through this. Just be kingdom minded. And it's literally, we said it yesterday, and it's like we're, you know, keep saying it, but that is what he instilled in all of us, was that mentality. And so yesterday for me, it was a gratitude day to be able to honor somebody that, you know, that has been so far deep in both of our lives. He was the only youth pastor I ever had.
Wow.
Now think about that. How many kids will grow up that grew up in church have multiple youth pastors?
True.
You know, and he said yesterday, and I heard it because it registers with me. He said when he went to Thomas Road, he said, I didn't want to do anything else. That's what I was going to do. he didn't use student ministry as a stepping stone to a real pastor. He was our pastor. Like it was, and he was all in. Yeah. And so he was there my 6th grade year. He came in August when I stepped into 6th grade. He was there. And then I graduated high school in May of 1997. He left in June of 97, right? And planted in September, right? So
where did he leave to?
To plant Westridge.
Okay.
So he literally went from and so I remember as a kid, him telling, I remember as a kid, him saying, he was there when my mom died and, my dad left and all that. And he said he wanted to be my only, he wanted to be with me. Now that's probably a memory that I'm making up a little bit, because he means so much to me, but I graduated, he left. And so it's a lot to be grateful for. And I think gratitude is always something that you have to keep at the forefront in your life, because without gratitude, you get arrogance. And I don't want to be arrogant. I want to be I want to be grateful.
Yeah. When you're celebrating anniversary services, we've decided at Genesis to celebrate it in a big way every year. Yeah. And some people are like, why? Is it really a big deal? And it is for us for many reasons. As I said, statistically, we shouldn't be here. There are many people that told us you won't make it past year 3. There were many people that told us if you can get about 100 people, you'll be considered a success story in Orlando, Florida. As we said yesterday, there are 92% of people who still don't go to church on Sunday in the city. And so you can't get arrogant. We have what we call good distractions in Orlando. Yeah. On any given day, someone can wake up and we sit 35 minutes from Cocoa Beach. You have passes to SeaWorld or Universal or Disney. And when you've had a long, hard week and you wake up as a parent and you go, I just want to go do something, there's options. And so church sometimes is the last option. And we learned that. And we've been learning that contextually in our city, that it's different. So you can't get arrogant and you can't get cocky. And what we always have realized is when we celebrate an anniversary service, strategically, we got to deflect us. Last year, we brought in all of our missions pastors from around the world. What are we celebrating? God's work around the world. Yesterday, we brought in Brian, not to give him the glory, but to honor him, to let people know this church doesn't exist without someone that was kingdom-minded. Just like when we stand in front of you and we talk about the churches we're helping plant in, Edinburgh, Scotland, with one of our good friends, Paul. And the reason that we send financial money over there is because someone believed in us and did it here. So we're now doing that. So you're in this moment where you're going, I want to celebrate because it's so amazing every year that God continues to bless and show favor. At the same time, I want to make sure that he gets the glory and he is worthy of all that is celebrated here in this moment. And so we make a big deal of it. And we want our people to, because we want them to have the gratitude. Some of them have been with us for 16 years. Not many, but a few. They know what it's been like to be through 4 locations and all of the setup and tear down of a portable church and the longing for maybe your own space one day. Sure. At the same time, I know what it's like to be in a portable church under Brian and then get a building. And I know what it was like to move into that new building and have no growth in the first year and to be pulling our hair out going, wait, we just got a brand new facility. Where's all the growth coming that we expected? Only to find out that for every new person we got, we lost an old person. Wow. Because the old people started finding new church plants because they felt needed every Sunday to flip a school into a church, and they didn't feel needed in a building where you flip the light on. So there's some psychological understanding to some of this. There's some mental understanding to people's approach. There's a spiritual aspect to it, obviously. And so you're just navigating it going, God, never thought I'd be here for 16 years. Just didn't comprehend what that would look like. I've been here twice as long now as I had been in Atlanta, Georgia, practically. And that blows my mind because so many of my early moments of ministry are there. And yet it still trickles back and it weaves through. And so we're a part of something. And it's a reminder we're a part of a faith that is way bigger than us and has always been bigger than us. And we've got to keep that in perspective as a church, as followers of Jesus, as people who listen to this podcast, that we are not the new We are not the best. We are not the ones that have arrived. We are not now the generation that figured it all out. We are in a long line of faithful people following a faithful God. We're just grabbing the baton at this point of the relay race, and we're carrying it until we pass it on to the next.
Yeah. Man, I love that you said every anniversary is we choose to remember, right? And it's pretty much what David's doing in Psalms 103. He says, bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits, right? Like he's speaking to his own soul, reminding himself to not forget the benefits of what God has done, because quite honestly, humanity it's very easy for us to forget. Even now in today's day, everything is just in front of us fast.
I would say this: memory fuels maturity. And the more you can remember, I feel like that fuels your maturity. Spiritually, when I remember back, to things and moments that I felt and, hard times and good times and all those things, you learn from those things. And so when you have a good memory, you have the opportunity to be mature and to fuel that maturity that we have. And so that's why I think David, he says, forget not. Like who would we be to forget, So
but David's also doing exactly what scripture already teaches us. One of my focal point passages of scripture has always been Deuteronomy chapter 8. I share this with my family every year at Thanksgiving practically. Like I try strategic moments to get back to Deuteronomy 8, because in Deuteronomy 8, the nation of Israel is about to go into the promised land. And God tells them multiple times, remember, do not forget. And he tells them this, he says, because once you enter the land that I'm giving you, which he told them was a land flowing with milk and honey, meaning he says you're going to get your houses and you're going to get your many cattle and you're going to get your wealth and all these things that are going to come. And then what are you going to be inclined to do? Forget me. And then you're going to say, by my might, by my strength, have I done this? And he says, remember and do not forget, it is because of the Lord that you have been brought out of Egypt and been given into the promised land. And that is a deep reminder David is leaning into in this moment, going, I can't forget the goodness of God. I can't forget the benefits of God. I can't forget the things he did for me personally. So he'll talk about, cleansing me of my iniquity, saving my soul from the pit of death, crowning me with a steadfast love. But he's also speaking to all of us. And we know in doing church that there are a lot of people, they don't believe there's a benefit to having God in their life. As a matter of fact, many people that are rejecting Jesus right now, it is because they do not see any benefit in their mind and how they see it of adding Jesus to my life. And we exist to tell them and show them something different. Brian did that for us.
Yeah, he did. He really did. Like Chad was saying, like gratitude fades when memory fades. You begin to, you get to a place where you're very driven, you're reactionary to everything that comes to you, and that's how you're living life. And so, that really tips the scale to our audience. Like, what benefits are you forgetting in your life that God has been doing, right? Like, it requires you to take a step back a bit in order to be able to propel forward. We used to hear that a lot from our former pastor, as stepping back in order to help propel us forward. And sometimes we need that in a mature state, not stepping back, in sin or anything like that. Stepping back in order to recalibrate our mindset, our focus, our desire, right, to rekindle some of that flame again. And all that comes through remembrance. All that comes through, stepping back and seeing the fingerprints of God in those little moments in life, right? I still continue to break down 2020 in my life, even till this day, and just trying to see the little fingerprints of God, right? Not little, but big. But seeing him work through that, and it just keeps resparking newer understanding and a newer love and passion towards him. For me, and I mean, maybe we've shared this throughout the pod, but 2020 was a monumental year for myself. After waiting over 2 decades in ministry, wondering what God was going to do, and just getting a shot, an opportunity to be in full-time ministry. Man, I was in a place of losing a lot of hope. I was going to continue the race, but I was beat. I was emotionally beat, mentally beat, just out of trying to endure so long and not seeing anything. And so, and it wore me out, like that. And, but yeah, 2020 changed a lot. 2020 changed a lot. God showed up. And I'll tell you something, man. I told my kids this, that we have seen in the last, at least personally, family-wise for us, the last 6 years have been a lot, man. God has really allowed things to come quickly, but not because he was delayed. It was because we were ready to take it now. And sometimes we look at life like that, man. It's taken so long. God, make sure you got to make it up right away. Nah, man, he's getting you ready, because when it comes and the doors open, they are coming strong. They're coming in hot. And that has been, it has been a wave the last 6 years of what God has done. But I don't forget, man, where it all began, right? Where me and my wife were serving in youth group week in and week out, giving ourselves to God, devoting ourselves in our marriage, saving ourselves for each other, all those different things that you wonder what that will do, right? Yes, you love the Lord and you do it out of obedience, but what fruit do we see out of that? And it just comes decades later as life is just going the way that it is. You're just like reminded, the Holy Spirit reminds you, you continued to run this race, man. And I'm convinced of that. Those are those moments. And so I'm jibber jabbing a little bit, but it is that's kind of how it's been for me, man.
I would say this, something that I've learned is that when my journey started at Genesis, it was a moment that happened, right? So I actually took Tim out for his 40th birthday. He's a year older than me. He's a New Year's baby. And so me and Michelle, him and Tandy, we went out to dinner, and it was a birthday dinner. It was not a church dinner. It had nothing to do, it kind of turned a little bit towards that. And I would just ask him, hey, who helps you with this? Who does this? Everything. But it's a long story, but it started with a moment, right? And then there was another moment a couple months later where I felt God was doing something in my life, and it was a moment, right? So I learned, and I was going through a season where I wanted to maximize my moments. Like, this moment's happening for a reason, and it's my responsibility to maximize it. So whatever that looks like, turn up the volume, turn down the volume, go by myself somewhere, get with the right people, but just maximize the moment. Because what I found is that moments, right, turn into momentum. And if you can piece enough moments together, you get that momentum, right? And then as you get enough momentum, eventually your life will go from a moment to momentum to a movement, right? And I think and for me, when I joined, there was a series of moments that I decided to maximize along the way. And that brought, this momentum into my life of, and when I called Tim, and we've talked about that before, but, I called him. We went to, to lunch and took him to Zaza's, because I didn't know at the time that was the way to his heart, but that was the way to his heart. And so, but it was just like moment. And those moments together created this momentum in my life where I said, it's not about, and Brian said it yesterday too, which is so funny, that you forget like where you get all this stuff from. Like, I don't know where I got this. And it's like, I got it from him. So where I say, it's not about me, you know what I'm saying? It's all about you. It's not about me. It's all about you. And it was just this moment in my life where it was like, it wasn't about me, but I knew that God had something different, you know? And I knew that if I put these moments together, I'll get this momentum. And now what we've been able to accomplish as a church, you know, just 7 years in, you know, it's now a movement. And that's what we're benefiting. But you have to remember that it started with a moment.
Yeah.
You know,
so
and
good.
If I wouldn't have called him and taken him out for his birthday, I mean, the guy likes steak and potatoes, right? So if I wouldn't have called him, you know, it may never have happened. But I said, you know, he's turning 40, you know, I mean,
it's a big year.
Yeah. Let me do something. So it was just that one moment that
In the
got
distant
us to
past.
this. Yeah. In the distant past, we creeping on 50 now. So,
You know, when I think
getting
about all of it
crusty,
though,
man.
like people consistently ask me, you know, very first Sunday of 2026, I preach on Psalm 51 and I'll say, and then God told me this and I wrote it down. Had a good friend text me, how do you know God's speaking to you like that? You know, when do you know? And what I've realized in following Christ and the benefits of God in my life, first and foremost is this: God doesn't speak to me that often. Yeah. People think that that's weird to hear.
So true.
It's just true.
It is.
God doesn't
so
speak
true.
that often. When I was, you know, sharing Psalm 51, that was almost a year of wrestling through Psalm 51. And I said 3 things God told me in a year.
Wow.
So it wasn't like I was waking up daily. More than not, I was waking up like every normal human being. Where are you, God? What are you doing? Why am I here? All those types of things.
Wow.
When you take all of our stories and you take Brian's story, while they all have their different circumstance, they all have the same exact foundational moment. This overwhelming turmoil inside that God is trying to do something different and new. And so I have heard Brian's story since I was a senior in high school, that he was laid with his nose in the concrete on the Georgia Dome in Atlanta at a Promise Keepers conference, listening to Isaiah 6 be preached and telling God, here am I, send me. And then I've heard him preach that countless times because that's a testimony moment to him where he just surrendered himself to God, but he knew God was trying to do something different in him.
Wow.
But it wasn't this, you know, just glorious aha moment over a cup of coffee in the morning as he opened up his Bible.
Yeah.
It was a very broken moment where God brought him to his face. In my story, I've said there was a 2-year wrestling match with God. I had gone to Brian and said, I think God might be calling me to start a church. So guess what he did? He brought me to Orlando, Florida to a church planners conference. Let me spend the week with him at the conference. This was 2 years prior. And at the end of it, he said, what do you think now? And I told him going home, I'm not doing that. He said, why? And these were my words to him. So I'm just telling you transparently. I said, it's a big peeing contest. I said, I just met a whole bunch of pastors that every time we stood in a circle, all they asked is, how many people do you have and what's your facility look like? And I don't want to play that game. 2 years of wrestling with God. I end up in counseling, tension, all these things. It was searching and waiting and longing for God to speak. Chad will say, I got to a point in my life where I thought I was done. Yep. And I had to call a mentor who said, if you're going to do this for the next 25 years, who do you want to do with it and where do you want to do it? You got to a point where you said, for 2 decades, God, what are you doing in my life? And so I tell people, and anyone that is wondering or wrestling, and maybe God is speaking to someone about full-time ministry, here's how I know you're called to ministry. Go do whatever else you want to do. Whatever else you want to do. And that's not ungodly for me to say. The fire will never stop burning. You can make as much money as you want. You'll be miserable. You can climb the ladder and get as many titles as you want in your company. You'll still be miserable. When you know God is calling you to something other than, nothing else fills that void. And then you get to be a part of it. And it has a lot of lows. It has some tremendous lows. You are dealing with people. You're dealing with brokenness. Yes, you're dealing with financial needs just to make things happen. All of that make you want to just crumble up, toss in the towel, and go stock the shelves in the back of Target where no one else can see you for a while. And then there's the benefits.
Wow.
And there's the moments where, as we said, you realize I get to play a part in God's kingdom. And as David writes in Psalm 17 through 19, he says, but the steadfast love of the Lord is from everlasting to everlasting on those who fear him. So he doesn't just say it's there. He also tells you why. And then he says, and his righteousness to children's children. So this is generational. To those who keep his covenant and do what? Remember to do his commandments. So it's not just remember his benefits. Remember what he's telling you and instructing you to do. And then it says, for the Lord has established his throne in the heavens, and his kingdom rules over all. And so now I get to look back over 16 years, and people say, what's the benefit? You know what the benefit is? This morning I woke up, and a young gentleman from São Paulo, Brazil, that I met 12 years ago that was an orphan on the street in the fish market, heard some Americans speaking English and followed us back to the church. He was teaching himself English in a Wi-Fi cafe, wanted to learn how to speak better, wound up sleeping in the church, growing up in the church, giving his life to Christ. And yesterday he is sending me himself, or this morning, he's singing a song, recording himself, can sing phenomenal. The goodness of God from Psalm 51, and said, I've been learning this song because one day I'm coming to your church and I'm going to sing it there with your church. I get that in a WhatsApp this morning, because I get to be a part of what God's doing in São Paulo, Brazil. I get a WhatsApp from our German pastor this morning, who's just grateful that we gave him a Seahawks hoodie because he's a Seahawks fan in Germany.
Go Seattle.
And they won.
Wow.
But he's a dear friend that I get to rely on. Yeah. I get to walk into a room last night and see students' lives being changed. I get to see a young man yesterday, a student in this church, who's been praying for his dad to come to Christ, who invited him to church. And then his dad accepted Christ yesterday in one of our services, put his faith and trust in Jesus. And this kid ran straight to his small group leader, one of our young adults, and embraced him, crying in full tears, in full joy that my dad came to church today, heard the good news of Jesus, and his life is forever changed. I get to be a part of that. I get to see God do things bigger than just him, beyond him. My life now gets to be a ripple effect of the goodness of God into other people's lives. I can screw that up in a moment. I can hinder that on a dime. But I have to do what David's saying. I have to remember his commands. I have to walk in fear of the Lord. And then I get to go in last night and watch my daughter on stage as a young adult, speaking to these students about what real worship is. I get to watch my son walk up on stage and lead our high school students in an understanding of following Jesus. I get to see Brian's son, who's 2 years older than my son, Kobe, be the guest speaker last night, who was a little kid I used to babysit in my house, and we would flip over the couch and we would play Nerf gun wars with barriers in my own living room. And he's up there talking about what God has done in his life, a personal relationship with Jesus, and how these students need to chase after their friends. And I'm just watching what God has done, and I'm going, these are the benefits. You can't get this anywhere else. You can't find this anywhere else. Life is always difficult, but life is great. And it is right, and it is much better when you have Jesus in your life.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm doing a Bible study for a group of businessmen here locally.
Nice.
And I got invited to do it just randomly by a friend of a friend. And so I do it on Wednesday mornings, and it's so cool. The guy that leads it, the guy that asked me to do it, I don't know, just randomly a couple months ago, he asked me, hey, send me the details for your church. And so I sent it to him, and, wasn't expecting much. So about 6 weeks ago, he showed up for the first time, and he was just blown away, just shocked. A single man, never married, no kids. And his family lives up in the Philadelphia area. And so he works to live and lives to work. And he'll tell you that. Like, that's what I do. His schedule and his calendar is crazy. So, but the last 6 weeks, he's been at church every single Sunday. And so he texted me yesterday, and he said, congratulations on 16 years. He says, I could see your emotion this morning. Thanks for leading me back to finding a church home. And it's those little things of something that's just, a lot of times you get text and it's, I want a meeting. I want to complain. You know what I'm saying? Like but just to receive that from a guy that, That's just, he's just a guy.
Yeah.
But he found a church home, and he's a loner. He doesn't want to meet anybody. He doesn't want to sit by anybody. He slides in. Yesterday he had his hood up, you know what I mean? And he's one of the most successful businessmen in Orlando. But he says, I found a church home, and he said that to him right now in the season that he's in has been the most impactful. And so getting those text messages and seeing those things and remembering that this is why we do what we do. This is why God's called us to do this, and there's good days, there's bad days, but the bad days, that's why, like I was telling Brian, I said, that's why we do it together. Right. So when it's a bad day, we're all here to pick each other up and to rock, together, but the good days we get to celebrate and laugh. And yesterday was a good day. But the best is yet to come. So there's going to be a lot more good days.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I selfishly look forward to 4 years from now when we celebrate 20, and what will that look like? Where will we be? Who will be on our team? Like the people that are, you think about Tim was just saying with Kobe and Caden, right? But Alexis, and, you think about these people that, were kids that we've seen grow up that hopefully sooner than later will take the baton from us. So the three of us can go sit on the beach somewhere and watch them, benefit it, but it's like who in 4 years is in high school right now that will be doing something, incredible. Mm-hmm. Who will we send out from our church? Because I don't think we've sent anybody out to plant yet.
Not yet.
But who in the next 4 years is going to come to us and say, God's been working on me, and I think God wants me to go plant a church. Those are the exciting things that you're like, man, who could that be? Who could that person be that in the next 4 years we sit here and do something similar to this, and we're saying, remember 4 years ago we asked who would it be? Well, man, we're excited because we're getting ready to send this family out, and they're doing that. So
the greatest benefit, obviously, of Jesus is what David writes. You forgive me of my iniquities. Mm-hmm. You save my soul from the pit. Mm-hmm. Only selfish people that don't believe they need help in life reject that. Mm-hmm. But the ripple effect, the benefit is you get to live life celebrating other people. And that makes you realize this world's not about me. So I can't say it's not about me, it's not about you, it's all about him, unless I really enjoy it not being about me. We were in Germany 4 years ago, and I had our pastor friend, his dad, who's a pastor, speak over me. And he just told me, he said, give it all away. Everything that God gives you, just give it away and watch what he does. And there has been a lot of joy in that. I don't need the recognition. I'm not striving for the recognition. I love that one of we would call them charter members now. We're not that old, but we're close to being able to say charter members, but has been with us since 16 years. She came up to me last night and she said, I was crying today. I was crying hard. And she said, you know what? I've seen those videos. It wasn't some of the footage I've seen over the last 16 years because we show some recap videos. She said it was the very beginning of the video is like our second or third week in church. My wife's on the carpet with some kids. One of those kids is Louisa Adkins. Wow. And she said, here she is, this little tiny little girl. And this morning she's on stage leading our church in worship in Portuguese so the Brazilians can sing along with her. And she said to think about that little girl on that carpet in that room of that school is now standing in front of our church leading people in worship and leading it in a different language for us. Like you just step back and that's where you go, this is way bigger than me. I would have never thought that 16 years ago in her life or someone else's life. You have these stories that you get to keep telling. And that's the benefit. The benefit is the joy. Wednesday night, I will take my family out. We've done this annually since day one because I had a pastor tell me to do it. And it was the greatest challenge ever. He said, every year, take your family out and celebrate the church. So what do? We go out for a really nice dinner and we sit around and we tell all of our favorite memories. We've done it for 15 years. We'll do it this Wednesday night for 16 years. We have just made it a family tradition. We talk about the good, the bad, the hard, the stories that hurt us, and yet the ones that we wish we could relive all over again. Because when we do that, it is training and teaching us not to forget the benefits of God. You heard Brian say yesterday, in my journal. I have heard that man say, I have journaled since I was in 7th grade. He writes everything down. Why? Because he doesn't want to forget it. He can always go back to it. He can always open it up. And it has taught me, I've got journals everywhere. And in my darkest days, I go back and pick up a journal and I read something of where I was in a dark spot that I thought then was dark. And then God did what God wanted to do. And it amazed me, and it was miraculous, and it was wonderful. And it reminds me in this dark spot that if he did it then, he can still do it again.
Yes.
And that's the goodness and the benefit of walking in faithfulness with God.
Man, that's amazing. Wow. It's good stuff, man. I am blown away. I personally, man, I want to say, like, for me, it is, I sometimes have to pinch myself. It's unbelievable what I get to do with who I get to do it with. And that is such a blessing for me, man. I've had leaders in moments, like in seasons, but not boots on the ground, deep into my heart, my life, the way that it's been these last 6 years. And I've needed that, because I remember right when I was just in that influx, didn't know what I was going to do. I remember crying out to the Lord. I said, Lord, I'm just gonna do what I have, work with what I got. I got my kids, I got my wife. I'm gonna give everything to them. Like I said, I was tired of just trying to pursue on my own. And the Lord led me to Isaiah 43:19. And it said this in 18 and 19. Remember not the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and the rivers in the desert. And I remember the next day, I said, all right, God. Well, right now, I need a friend. Like I'm not pushing anything. I don't have an agenda. I just want a friend. I want accountability, someone that I can go to. Who do I call? I call this guy right here next to me.
I'm your friend? Jeez. Somebody take note.
Immediately. Chad just came to my head. And because I don't know, he's always been that person. Yeah. And I remember texting him. I texted him. I said, hey, man, I just want accountability. I want to just have somebody that I can talk to. And little did I know God was leading his heart somewhere as well for our relationship. And that began to trickle down into what it is now. But that's what I gained. I gained a deeper level of friendship with Chad, but I also gained yourself, Tim. And I gained 2 other guys, Will and PJ. I gained a group of brothers that hold me accountable, that make me better, that take me to new heights. Man, that I could sit at their feet and I'm learning and I'm growing. And the way that you guys have sat at Brian's feet all these years, like that's what's happening with me now. I get to see all the things that God is doing through you, the wonders that he's done in your lives, the memories, and I see that now happening within my own life. And, who knows? Years down the line, it's going to be one of those similar moments we're going to have. I want to ride in the sunset with you guys, man. I do. And I hope that's what we get to do. But, God knows. God only knows how this thing is going to continue to keep going. But I know that you guys got my back for the rest of my life. Yep. And that's huge.
Well, I think it's interesting because, there's a season for everything, and I think we all got to a moment in a season in our life where we really had to just say, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
And it starts with that truly understanding and knowing who you are as a person, and then realizing, okay, I'm confident in who I am. But at the end of the day, I know there's more. And that's where he was. I mean, he was at Westridge, which was booming and growing. And, I would go visit him and see what God is doing in him. I mean, one of the best middle school ministries I'd ever seen. And then he transitioned into, young adults and was, killing it. I mean, it's amazing. And it's like, but there's more, there's just more. And so for me, I mean, when I decided to take this step, people were like, you're crazy. I wasn't planning a church, but like I was coming from a place where, on the outside, man, it was great.
Yeah.
I had this feeling like I wanted more.
Yeah.
I felt God wanted more from me. And you, like you said, you were chasing what you were chasing, and but you just knew that God wanted more.
Yeah.
And so, for me, one of the coolest moments is just realizing that when you're faithful, when you're obedient, to who God has called you to be, that God will make it all work out. And we all had bad scenarios when it first started, you know what I mean? I mean, just weird scenarios, but yet it all worked out.
It did.
And so yesterday, one of the coolest moments, and I don't know how long y'all normally talk, but was Kobe on the front row. So I think he was on the front row, and I got emotional yesterday, and just because of just everything, like I already talked about.
It's you.
But I forget what song it was. I don't know the
Final
names
with
of
the
songs.
recap
Final
video.
song with the video. Yeah. So here's Kobe, and if you don't know, has Kobe ever been on the podcast?
No.
Y'all hate Kobe?
We'll see.
I mean, I know he tried to start one to rival you at one point, I think, and you sabotaged him. But that's a story for a different day.
love him.
So, but anyway, so Kobe, if you don't know him, he's way big. I mean, he's big personality, first of all, but big guy. And it was, I mean, I guess it was the last song, and he just broke down. I mean, it was but it was funny because, here he is, and he had this moment of like, I don't know what it was. It'd be interesting to ask him. But it was, for me on the outside looking in, it was that moment where it was, look at what this is. And you got to understand, when Kobe lived in my house with Tim, how old was he?
8.
8. So he's the same age as JJ.
No, 10. I'm sorry, 10.
So JJ's 9, right? So same age as my son. And so we had some, I mean, dude, it was a blast. I had
see how you are with my kids.
At the time, bro. we got into some nonsense, And so, but seeing that and not knowing at the time what Tim was walking through.
Wow.
Right? Because we did distance that a little bit. At the beginning for us. But like just seeing that, and then now seeing Kobe, and then it just hit him.
Wow.
And it's like, to me, that's the benefit of what this is. Kobe remembering, and then being able to just, I mean, last night, it was a packed house, and he's the joy and the love that comes from that. To me, that's what this is. That's the blessings that that he's I guess a benefactor of, what I mean, because of obedience from his dad, but obedience from his granddad, I mean, all the way.
You have some really low moments. If Brian could have told his story, one of the stories that just etched in my soul before I ever started this church was at the beginning of him starting Westridge. He tells a story where they were not going to make payroll. And he goes into the woods, he sits by a creek and prays and cries out to God all day long. No one knows he's in the woods. On the way home that night, a random gentleman called him whose daughter and son-in-law happened to start going to Westridge. Lots of people didn't want this new church in the area. He thought it was one of those phone calls. The gentleman asked to meet with Brian. And he said, God told me to give this to you, and hand him a check that covered all of payroll. Here's the problem. People hear that. I just told that story in 30 seconds. All most people do is they pay attention to the fact that he got a big check that covered payroll.
Yeah.
They don't pay attention to the fact that he sat by a creek in the woods all day long in real tears, carrying the weight of, I don't know if I can help these people pay their rent and their house payment and their water bill today. And he carried that. We've had those moments at Genesis where there was no one else around. but it's just you and God crying out because you do not know how it's going to happen. We had moments where we couldn't pay the rent in the elementary school. Some random guy would show up and outgive everybody that had been attending for the last year and then not come back again. But his one check covered rent and we don't even know who he is. I could tell you that and it's awesome. At the same time, I can tell you what it's like to live in pure stress, that you have to call Orange County school systems and see if they can just double up rent next month and hopefully we can recoup and get there. You have those, but then you have the others. Wow. And, I brought people with me to start Genesis, who I thought, man, this is the team that's going to lead us. In the first 5 years, all those team members left. As well, some families that moved down with us from Georgia. And now you're like, God, what is going on? Everything that I brought here has been taken away. Wow. And then God says, no, I'm going to build the team. I'm going to put the people in place. I'm going to bring them along. And I'm going to show you the benefits of it. And so there's joy, I tell people, when I step back and I look at our staff and our team. I look at the women on this team. So godly. They are incredible at what they do, super talented.
Yes, they are.
I did not know you. I did not know PJ. I did not know Will. We had no idea we would be doing this together, Chad and I, even though we can say we knew each other from 5th grade. We never talked about it. And then God puts it together. And I have to step back and once again see the benefits of it and go, this is not by my might. This is not by my strength. I didn't do this. You did this because I had a different idea. I had a different picture. There's a photo of all those original guys together that I thought were going to lead Genesis for decades, and they all vanished. And in those low moments, God, you replenished and you built what you needed to build for where we're going. And that's the joy. That's the amazing benefit. That's Kobe looking back and going, man, I had no idea at 11 and 12 years old what would be taking place. We've had close people come and go. We've had new people arrive. It's just been, that's what ministry is. But at the end of the day, we get to do it with people who want to expand God's kingdom. And I think the greatest statement Brian made yesterday, and this is why I love him, because I always learn and hear new things from him, is when he said, we're all missionaries disguised as something else. Great. We're all missionary disguised as something else. You may not be called to be a pastor and be in full-time ministry. You may be called to be a nurse. Guess what, though? You're not just a nurse. You're a missionary in disguise. You may think you're just a school teacher. Nope, you're a school teacher in disguise. He tells his oldest son, Taylor, you're not a coach. You're a coach in disguise. I'm like, what a great lesson for your home, for your family, for your children's children, so that everybody learns it is kingdom-minded. I'm on mission wherever God has put me. And so some people step back and they go, I've never been called into full-time ministry, so I won't understand those benefits. Not true at all.
No.
Where God has planted you, he wants to use you.
Yeah.
And you are a missionary in disguise as something else. And if you can hear that and you can live by that and you can teach your kids that, then you will realize you will experience the benefits of God wherever you are because you're doing what he's asked you to do for his kingdom.
Man, let's go. Let's go. Fellas, this has been amazing. 16 years, man. I'm ready to do many more with you guys. PJ, Will, we love you guys as well. And
I just want to say this. Can I say this?
Go for it.
You rebuilt Genesis in color. That's what you did. So when you came down with the white boys from Georgia to one of the most colorful cities in America.
That ain't happening.
God, that was introduced Technicolor
So
to your life.
let me add to that real quick as we close out. Let me say this. I had a
Sorry.
gentleman come up to yesterday.
funny.
The closing video said 16 years, 4 locations, 6 countries, 22 nations, 1 kingdom. And he was like, do you have that printed somewhere? He's like, I want a copy of that in my house. And I was like, seriously? He's like, yeah, just that. He said, that is why I'm here. That is what this church is about.
Wow.
And when he said that, I thought, that's exactly what I enjoy the most.
Yeah.
When people ask me like how Genesis is doing, I don't talk about how many services. I don't talk about how many people. You know, the first things that come out of my mouth, we're partnered with 6 different countries. Do you know we have 22 nations represented? Like, that's the joy. And as he said, to to testify to that, I brought 4 boys from Georgia and West Virginia down
County, bro.
to
County kids.
diverse Orlando City. And I remember at the very beginning of the church, I tried to get my cousin to move down here because she had double majored and she could teach people how to speak Spanish. So I wanted her to translate and do that for us for our music. And it never happened. And then here we are 16 years later. And I do have a Hispanic, but he's from Wisconsin. So
414, baby.
We have a
414.
We have a white Puerto Rican.
he's the
Wisconsin.
only one. He's
chill,
the remnant. We don't know how you
Chill.
got there, but no
Last man
Hispanics
out.
go to Wisconsin.
Last man
Okay,
out.
it's too cold. But I'm looking on stage and I'm seeing Alexis and I'm seeing Luisa, who's from Brazil, and I'm seeing Efren, who's from Mexico, and I'm watching God put all this together, and we're singing in English
Our
and
drummer
Spanish
was
and
Brazilian.
Portuguese. Our drummer's Brazilian. And I'm going,
Phil White's from Miami, so he's basically Cuban.
by way of Philippines.
By
Keep
way
it-
of
hey, yo,
Philippines.
Philippines.
Or China, right?
China.
Yeah.
So, but I step back. No one else knows this. And I look at the platform and I go, first of all, we didn't schedule this. Like, hey, let's make sure we add in a little bit of Hispanic and a little bit of
Yeah.
Brazilian
Little
and whatever. No, like we're not forcing it. This is who we are. And it's not just this is who we are. This is what God has done. And I marvel at it. And I take joy in it. And I look around and I see Allison from Jamaica just singing with everything she's got beside us.
Who is from the town where
That we
we've
used to
done
go
missions
do
in
missions in.
Jamaica.
Great.
And I just look around the room,
Wow.
and then you bring in someone like Brian,
Yeah.
and that's immediately what he wants to talk about when he leaves. Tim, the diversity is amazing to me. Like to look all over the room and see that many different people from different backgrounds
So
that are all in unison, and we just go, only God. There's the benefit. In a very divided culture, in a very divided nation, in a very divided world, the benefit of God, the unity that most people are looking for, are found at the foot of the cross.
That's good, man.
Jesus.
Wow.
That's the greatest
That's it.
benefit
He's the
you can
firm
watch and
foundation.
see.
Yeah. Man, what a blessing. We're so thankful for you guys just being with us. If you have any questions or have any comments, or maybe you have been with Genesis Church Orlando for a while and just want to share a testimony or something like that, we would love to hear from you. postsundaypodcast@gmail.com. You can send us an email or hit us up on the DMs on Instagram, TikTok, X. We're on YouTube as well. You can find us on all those platforms at Post Sunday Podcast. But man, what a blessing. And I kind of want to just leave you with something for you to reflect on and just have something tangible to work with throughout this week. As we talked about Psalms 103, obviously we didn't go through the entirety of it. But one of the main things that we hit upon in Psalms 103 is not forgetting. And so I want to encourage you this week, speak to your soul daily. Speak within yourself. What is it what's really taking place within the depths of your heart? Write down God's benefits. Write them down. Put them on paper so that you can remember, where you can file them away and be able to go back and say, this is some of the things that God has done. This is some of the things that I've been through. This is what I've been feeling. This is what I've been going through. And replace forgetfulness with just intentional remembrance. Keep remembering. Start your daily devotions with remembering what God has done, remembering his benefits and all that he has done. And just read, I encourage you guys, read Psalms 103 this week, as we've done throughout this entire podcast, just to challenge you. Read Psalms 103. It's a quick read, but allow that to just stay in your heart, stay in your soul, and lead you throughout the week as you continue on in your walk. But what a blessing it's been, man. Thank you guys again for being with us. We cannot wait. Next week, episode 5, we'll continue on in the Psalms. But until then, man, hope you guys have been blessed. We'll see you back next week. Grace and peace.